Right, Deb, ready to go live?
Yeah, ready. I think.
Perfect. Go?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Go for it.
Hey, good evening. I'm Andy.
And I'm Debs.
Stay tuned.
It's Codes of the Unknown.
Hello. So, tonight, I'm so excited for tonight, you have no idea. So, we are joined by the amazing Earl Grey Anderson.
Hello.
For those of you that don't know, he's a MUFON State Director of Southern California, and he's a member of the
Resource team.
Oh, Resource Team.
The ERT.
ER team. He's also a lead guitarist, vocals, and published singer-songwriter, and he's been on the music scene since the 70s with his wife, Lisa, who is also a singer-songwriter and musician.
Yes.
And that's everything that I have. So welcome, Earl.
Thank you, Andy. Hi, Debbie. How are you guys doing? It's good to see you again.
You too. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
So I was thrilled that you asked me to play some music on today's program, because usually I'm just talking UFOs the whole time.
There you go.
So I gotta change hats here.
We like to mix it up.
The nice thing is, I was telling for people in the audience, I was telling Andy earlier that when I started investigating UFOs and was, beginning to get podcasts and radio stuff, it was kind of a big deal to just be naked, not literally naked, but just me and the microphone, and not have a guitar to hide behind. Because I could stand in front of an audience and joke around and as long as you have your guitar there, it's sort of like, you kind of hide behind that, a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, I had to get used to not having that guitar in front of me. And now it seems like I'm being asked to play guitar and talk UFOs. And so that's cool.
Really
I get my little, I get a hide again. And
I'm so glad you agreed to do it.
Yeah.
As you know, I've just, just so thrilled.
Well, anyway, I'm a musician and I've been doing it for many, many years. I, kind of grew up on, my dad was a classical musician, a classical vocalist.
Yes.
So for me, there was always music in the house. It was always music on the record player when I was a kid. And my mom, we've talked about her on the last time I was on your show. You know, it's kind of, she was Howard Hughes's old secretary, and she knew a lot of stuff. She had pretty high security clearances, and when I was about 5 years older, so she gave me a little disclosure number, you know, that I carried around with me for many years.
Yeah.
And but the other thing that my mom, she was in a local, she didn't do theater, but she liked theater.
Right.
So she'd go to this local theater group in Santa Monica called the Turnabout Theater. And there was this woman that it was the cleaning woman's daughter. Her name was Odetta. You may have heard of her. And Odetta wound up becoming very, very famous as a folk musician. Songs like Froggy Went a Courtin' and Give Damn and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my first memories was her coming over to visit my mom. And she brought her guitar and she played in our kitchen in Venice, California.
Yeah.
And it just, you know, I was probably 4 or 5 years old and just rapped. And so I think that stuck with me. It just seemed like this, you know, it was this normal thing to do, to express yourself and to write songs and to sing and to have a guitar there. And so I just kind of fell into that, you know, as I was growing up, you know, playing keyboards originally, and I wasn't very good. Still am not. But when I wanted a drum set when I was like 12 years old. And of course, the parents got me the acoustic guitar very wisely. Yeah. They didn't want the neighbors to be complaining, you know, like they would have been if
boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, exactly. So so that's kind of how I got into it. And I'll tell you, just to learn how to sing and stuff, I would take a tape recorder and I would, I learned a couple of easy Beatles songs up front, you know, and I would just tape myself until it sounded right. You know, everybody's voice sounds horrible on tape the first time you hear it.
Yeah.
It's always a surprise. You know, you're used to hearing yourself in the amphitheater of your own skull, you know, which kind of gives you this natural echo. Yeah. And but you know, when I was in junior high school, that's like our 7th and 8th grades here. Now I guess it's called middle school.
Yeah.
But I had a teacher who, she found out that I was writing songs. I had turned in a couple of lyric sheets as poetry in her class. And she told me she'd give me extra credit if I'd play in front of the class. And that was what I would do. Every week I would try to write a new song and I would play in front of my English class. And I became very comfortable. You know, kids stopped teasing me as much and stuff. I was kind of like the teased kid, right. Which probably started when I told everybody that UFOs were real back, you know, when I was 10 years old. Yeah. That stuff kind of follows you around, you know, as kind of the spacey kid, I guess. But that was really showed me this way to socially connect. And that's kind of how I got into it. And I played in many bands. We had one band, we recorded an album at Warner Brothers studios back in the late 1970s. It was a black gospel band, of all things. I was the one white guy in the band. We had the full horn section, had the choir and all that. And the guy that managed us, he was Ike and Tina Turner's old sound man.
Wow.
So he based our group kind of on the review concept. So I would get my little spot and I would kind of play rock and roll stuff, you know, maybe acoustic song, and then we'd be back into like full gospel choir stuff, and then like something funky. And we wound up playing like every little black church in Southern California. And we played things like the Watts Festival. We opened up for Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Barry White. And in fact, our trumpet player was in the band Rufus with Shaka Khan and those guys. Yeah, he moonlit with us. So that was my kind of origin story with music, and it's always stuck with me through the years.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of CDs out there. One is
Is that
just
onto your
Earl
own?
Grey. It's my own stuff. One is just Earl Grey Lover's Ridge. You can find it on Spotify.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then I was in a duo called Piper Grey. We got a lot of independent radio and some non-independent radio, which is nice.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles and stuff. And there you go.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I'd just say them links that when I was talking to you the other day and you sent me them links over, I've put them in the description of the free videos, so people can click on it and it'll take them onto YouTube so they can watch it direct on there.
Sweet.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
So, this is a song that I wrote some years back. We recorded it. It's on Piper Grey Apples, which you can find at Amazon. You can find it on Spotify if you'd like to stream, or any of your streaming services.
Yeah.
It was my duo with Dave Piper, Piper Grey. And so anyway, a song called Tempé. She gives me holy wafers and a silver chalice too, reading transubstantiation, saying this is my body, it was open there for you. When you came onto this grifter, you left him a short note, which he only found years later. It was crumpled up like magic in the lining of his coat. Sometimes I think of Tempé. We was drinking way too much in your yellow beanbag chair with a night buzzing with cicadas and the blue moonlight spilling through your hair, spilling through your raven hair. I'm so hopelessly romantic that I don't know what is real. My memory engenders these miasmas and fantasias where an altar boy can live. And I'll kneel to you, my darling, and I'll take you soft and smooth. And these little deaths we suffer shall be corridors of light with the heavens peeking through. Sometimes I think of Tempé. We was drinking way too much in your yellow beanbag chair with a night buzzing with cicadas and the blue moonlight spilling through your hair, spilling through your raven hair. We were walking by the tracks at night, never think about second sight, but everything was all right. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I think of Tempé. We was drinking way too much in your yellow beanbag chair with a night buzzing with cicadas and the blue moonlight just spilling through your hair, spilling through your raven hair, spilling through your raven alive in hell. Sometimes I think of Tempé. Sometimes I think of Tempé. Yeah. Sometimes I think of Tempé. And I hope sometimes she thinks of me. There you go. Well, thank you.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
Thanks so much. Thank you,
Love
guys.
that.
That was awesome. That was so good.
That's my other half, you guys. Those of you that know me through the UFO, investigations I do.
Yeah.
It's surprising, I and it seems like a lot of people that are in the field. It seems to attract a lot of musicians and songwriters, creative people. I think creatives are kind of drawn to the phenomenon at large in a way, and it seems like a lot. A lot of people in the music scene have had UFO experiences.
Yeah,
which is very interesting to me. I had the pleasure of being friends with the great Chris Squire, who is the bassist for the band Yes.
Yep.
I was friends with the woman that he married previously. She was a good friend of mine. So I kind of inherited him as a friend when she married Chris. She got to know him, and they just kind of fell head and heels in love with each other.
Yeah.
And so Chris, I would hang out with him sometimes, when he'd come out to LA on a tour, or if he was recording out here or something.
Yeah.
And Chris would like to talk about UFOs until 3 a.m. He would keep providing the wine, and we would keep talking. And but he had a UFO sighting when he was on tour with Yes back in 1977 in the UK.
Yeah. Right.
And he told me this one story where he was on tour with a band, and at this point they all had separate caravans. They weren't going to ride in the same bus. They were a little hoity-toity at that point, making some money and
exclusive.
Yes. So Chris had a driver, and they were kind of in the middle of nowhere. They were up, and I think had a gig up in northern England or something, and the North Country. And he pulled over in the middle of nowhere to use nature's bathroom. And the way he told the story, he said that he was, peeing on a rock, more or less, and he felt like he was being watched. And he looked up, and there is something, a flying saucer like you would see from a 1950s science fiction movie.
Yeah.
And he said that it had this one string of gaudy little lights on the bottom of it that were spinning around almost like a carnival ride. And this thing was just hanging there, defying gravity. And, for him, and I asked Chris, I said, how much LSD were you on at the time?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. And he was not exactly chuffed over that question. He was kind of like, I wasn't on any bloody LSD, and you were on our way to a gig. Have you ever heard of music? You can't play it when you're on LSD. He was apparently perfectly sober. He was taking turns at the wheel.
Right.
But he said that he watched this thing tilt on its side, and it shot off into the distance so quickly. He said that it didn't disappear, but it seemed like it disappeared because it left so quickly. But it was maybe 30, 40 feet away from him. And the next thing he knows, it's this little tiny dot in the distance, and then nothing, He got back into the caravan, and I guess that the driver, I don't know, he didn't say whether the driver saw it or not. I got the feeling he didn't.
Right.
He was sitting there in the van waiting for him. But Chris, we would just want to talk UFOs all the time.
Yeah.
And that was one of the other things that led me to become a MUFON field investigator, were my talks with Chris. And it really got me thinking about my mom's conversation she had with me when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
That we're not alone in the universe, and that the government's we already know this, but the public is not being told because they wouldn't be able to handle that. That they were afraid of. I mean, my mom said they were afraid of how people would react, like the War of the Worlds radio broadcast, Orson Welles' old thing. So anyway, there's the music connection there, though. Ufology and rock and roll. I think it's there.
Yeah. Steph Chase saying polystyrene from X-Ray Specs punk band witnessed a pink glowing object in the sky after a gig in Doncaster. She said everything crackled when she touched things afterwards.
Wow. Wow.
Amazing.
Hi, Steph. That's amazing. Well, I know Stevie Ray Vaughan said that he'd seen a UFO. John Lennon and May Pang, when he was living in New York, he was kind of having a hiatus with Yoko at the time. Had a mistress, May Pang.
Yeah.
Is a very nice lady. I've spoken with May before, and the object that they saw it fly in between buildings in New York.
Wow.
It just kind of parked in front of their picture window. And John is looking at this thing, and he called May into the room and said, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing? And what are you seeing?" He might have been on LSD. I don't know.
Could have been, yeah.
But she came in and she was, she's like, it's a flying saucer. It's a, and there's a couple of stories about John Lennon that I'm not sure if are true.
Right.
But, there's one where apparently he was visited by some guys that said they were aliens that gave him some kind of a cube that you could see the past through. But I I think that it's probably one of those stories. There's a lot of
myths.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a modern myth. It seems like the phenomena, seems to grow those around itself sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but Chris Squire's story though was true as far as I know, and May Pang said that when she and John Lennon saw their UFO in New York, that it was so close. She said, "I could have hit it with a rock."
Wow, that is close.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes, Jacques Vallée had his idea of, maybe some UFOs are us from the future.
Yeah.
And maybe some musicologist is looking up John Lennon and Chris Squire and, a few centuries from now or whenever. That's what I'd do.
Yeah.
I'd want to go and visit Beethoven and some of those guys. And certainly I'd want to go see the Beatles, play for the Queen, where John did his, the guys in the cheap seats could clap, the rest of you just rattle your jewelry. Yeah. You'd want to be at that show.
You would, yeah.
He horrified Brian Epstein, their manager. He told him that he was going to say that, but he was going to use the F word. You shake your effing jewelry, but he was going to actually, and so apparently Brian Epstein was horrified. He was afraid that he was going to say the whole quote. Yeah, he left out the F word. And apparently the Queen thought it was quite droll. So there you go. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Excellent. I was going to say, do you want to start with the questions?
Sure.
We've got one from Nickname. What is Earl's top UFO story and why?
Wow. Because there's a lot of really good, a lot of them. And goodness, I had one case that I investigated that it was picked as one of MUFON's 5 best cases of the year last year. Yeah. But it was... I could open up the case file, but I'll just tell you from memory, so I'm not looking stuff up. But there was this woman and her son that were in Los Angeles, and they were driving back. I forget where they were coming back from, but near this school, they saw this V-shaped craft that was just hanging over the play yard. And the closer that they got to it, time became very weird for them. You'll hear this from people that have a close encounter. Either people that are experiencers that have had a visit from entities, or it can happen if you have a close encounter with a craft. A thing called the Oz effect, where things get very quiet. You can't hear the motorway around you. You can't hear, crickets or any sounds. It becomes unnaturally quiet, and time becomes very malleable and strange. And she said that as they drove closer to this, it seemed like they were looking at this thing for a lot longer than their watches showed that they had been gone. So sometimes you'll have people that have missing time. Other times people will experience elongated time in a short period. And that's what happened with them. They watched this thing as they got closer to it. It just turned around. It had these lights on the underbelly, and it turned facing them so they could see the lights, and the lights started flashing in sequence. And it seemed to have put them in sort of a hypnagogic state. And they were unsure how long they were watching this.
Right.
Finally, it moved back to its original position. It turned around, and it just left rooftop level until it disappeared into the vanishing point. They drove all the way home. And when they finally got home, his adult son, he was like 19 years old. He asked the mom, he said, what was that? What did we see? And she was like, well, I think we know what we saw. That was a UFO.
Yeah.
Now this mom, she's a psychotherapist with a very, a very busy clientele, very well known. She and her husband actually have like a mental wellness radio show that they do.
Right.
So I have to keep them. I always keep my witnesses anonymous anyway. But anyhow, the husband, he's an MD, and we hear this a lot. There was almost like a pact between her and the son to not talk about this thing when they saw it, even though it was the most stunning and amazing thing they'd ever seen, and it could not be explained. But the mom started having these episodes where the husband would wake up at night and he would be paralyzed. He couldn't move. And the mom was being abducted from their bedroom.
Right.
He'd find her in the other room sometimes with her clothes on differently than it was before. She had like, sometimes we'll have people that will have marks left on the back of their necks or places, on their different spots, like triangular marks sometimes. And she definitely had that happen with her. And I keep in touch with these people. I keep in touch with all of my experiencer cases in particular, because a lot of times they don't have anybody else to talk with about it.
No.
Especially if they have to remain incognito like this family.
Yeah.
So, but the mom is comfortable with it. She feels like it's nothing malevolent that's going on. But it does continue. She's had some of the proverbial things that have messages left with her, a warning about nuclear war and nuclear proliferation. A message of just suddenly she's had a great concern about environmental issues, and it's made her more spiritual too, and she experiences synchronicities in her life. We see that after people have close contact with beings, or sometimes with a craft. It's a thing called the Valet-Davis effect, where the experiencer will start manifesting behaviors that we oftentimes attribute to our visitors themselves. Like there's a cosmic contagion that we come in contact with. And I learned a lot about the phenomena through that case. And it's probably my favorite recent case. is that one. Sometimes it seems like, these cases aren't so random when I get them, almost like it's this teachable moment. And when I first came into this, I really didn't understand the phenomena. I thought I was going to be, investigating nuts and bolts spacecraft or something, and it's very different from that. There's a connection to the big bad word at MUFON right now, paranormal. We're not supposed to say that, but I'm sorry, there's paranormal like effects that happen when you have contact, with a craft, or especially with beings, So that's probably my favorite case, most recent case. I've got a bunch though. I mean, I've closed I think 800 cases now personally.
Wow.
That I've investigated. I had a very small team for many years, and I was, chief investigator. So I tended to get maybe sometimes 10 cases a week. A lot of those, right off, I'll see the video. It's like, oh, that's a drone, or that's a balloon, Mylar balloon, semi-deflated, caught in an updraft. So you knew every single IFO. Somebody put in a case where it was she thought it was a UFO that was underwater, and it was a submarine. It was like, no, there are submarines, and there's a naval base over there. And yes, that was a long airplane looking like object under the water, but it was not a UFO. That was a submarine.
Yeah.
But like Jock, or J. Allen Hynek is one of my great heroes, the guy who was the main scientist on Project Blue Book.
Yeah.
And his rule of thumb was 5 to 10% of your reports are going to be interesting. 10% on a good day. Usually it's more like 5%. Usually people will see a planet, Venus, or they'll see a drone, or they'll see something. And but when you see a real UFO, you know it. There's no question about it.
No, that's true.
I mean, I've seen one vehicle since I've done this, and there was no question. When I first saw it, I was going, well, who's doing this hoax? And I'm looking for ways it could have been hung up in the air. And it was just this monstrosity hanging up in the sky. And the closer I got to it, it had a psychological effect on me, like they always tend to have.
What shape was it?
This was a V-shaped craft. It was not a pretty UFO. It looked like somebody had taken a bunch of giant shipping crates and put them together in the shape of a B-1 bomber. And I didn't see a cockpit on it or anything like that. It was like a V-shaped, boxy looking thing, but there it was hanging. It must have been a lot of tonnage to that thing, but it was hanging 40 feet in the air with no observable tethers or no observable propulsion. Something that I had never seen before. And the closer I got to it, it had a psychological effect. I didn't grab my phone. I wasn't calling the media and taking photos and calling people from MUFON. I drove right past that thing. 2 miles out, I'm like, what the hell happened? That was a smoking gun picture. Girl. I was ready to fire myself. I didn't want to tell my...
You're not good enough.
No, I was assistant state director, and I didn't want to tell our state director because I thought... But you know what? He and his son saw a flying saucer, or sort of more of a disc-shaped craft. And he didn't take photos either. It had an effect on them. That's why you don't see any good UFO photos, or they're very rare. If you've got a GoPro camera going on 24/7, chances are they'll turn it off.
Or they'll render it useless.
I mean, people do get photos, but they're not very common. Usually they're pretty far away and fuzzy looking.
Weird.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next question.
Sure.
Next question is from Johnny Appleseed.
Hello, Johnny.
Right. Has Earl ever seen or held any trace from UFOs?
Good question. Not yet. I went out on one case where there were 3 witnesses. One was like in the next town over that saw kind of a classic flying saucer. And it was hovering over this man, this large elm tree that was in front of his house. And I was ready to go. We were going to bring out an arboreal ladder and a Geiger counter and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the man that owned the property was kind of a religious fellow.
Ooh.
And he was kind of, get off of my lawn. He wasn't having any of it. So I had to go around. I actually knocked on neighbors' doors to find out if people saw anything, left my card around. But apparently it was just those 3 witnesses.
Right.
But that would have had to trace. I'm sure that we would have gotten some residual radioactivity that would have been left, because it was hovering right over the leaves of that tree. But there went that, landing traces. I mean, we get them, and I'm actually a STAR team member, so I'm able to go out and I know how to handle bag evidence and cordon the area off and know not to step beyond the line and all that good stuff. But you don't most of the UFO investigations that you do are going to be it's just like Paul Hynek, when they were doing the TV show for Project Blue Book, people were complaining that it wasn't true to life. And he said, well, if we showed my dad what he actually did, you wouldn't have a TV show. He would be behind his desk with a pile of papers and a typewriter back then, and on the phone and interviewing witnesses. And, that's a lot of it is interviewing people and going to the site and taking theodolite photos.
Yeah.
Just show the coordinates and the elevation of UFOs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we've got a question from Nickname. What makes a credible witness when investigating cases, and what are people reporting?
A credible witness can be anybody, really. You have to talk with them long enough to where you get to know them. I like to talk with a family member or somebody else that knows them if I can.
Yeah.
I'll do multiple interviews with people. Contrary to popular belief, I get so many UFO reports turned in from doctors, scientists, aerospace engineers, people that are, it's not a bunch of hillbillies, seeing UFOs. Although sometimes I'll get a hillbilly type that's seen a UFO, and they can be a great witness as well. Phenomena is not a respecter of person, I don't think. So
no, it's not.
But when you've seen one, you'll notice the people that have seen one and know and where it's made a huge effect on their lives. It's a catalyst. I mean, it's like BC and AD. When you see a UFO, I don't care who you are. It changes your underlying baseline reality, and it's kind of pulled out from under you like a rug. And you'll notice ontological shock is what Dr. John Mack called it, where people are confounded. Their sense of reality is pulled out from under them, and they have to regain their psychological footing. And you recognize certain markers from case to case and effects that they have on people. And there are effects and markers that I keep from the public that so when I run into them from case to case, I can check them off. So, but we will like military or pilots or anybody that's a trained observer. That's the best, the best witness. But it can be anybody.
Yep. Thank you. One more question from Umbraman. What's Earl's process of investigation?
Good question. We have the Field Investigator's Handbook at MUFON. That's really quite a good. It's the closest thing to a textbook out there, really, on the subject, and it really teaches you what to look for. What really tells you that it's a UFO. But I'll of course get a hold of the witness. I'll talk with them. I'll talk with, if there were, I love the cases where there's more than one witness. If there's, I've had some of the better cases, I've had whole families and such that have seen UFOs. And you interview the whole family. A lot of people will come historically and report the UFOs. I had a triangular UFO sighting from these two guys that were just, like 7 and 10 years old back in the 1966. Venice, California, and they saw this triangular UFO fly right over the family barbecue towards the ocean. And there was a window on the side of it, and they actually saw figures behind the window, people or entities or whoever it was. And years later, this guy went. This was about 7 years ago when he reported to MUFON, and his brother and his mom had seen it, as well as a sister, but they were all kind of scared to talk about it. It's just a family barbecue, and the mom is getting up there now. She's, I think, 90 years old or so. But just recently, the mom and the sister and the brother all came forward. They all finally felt comfortable enough to talk about it. I guess because it's been in the media.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people aren't laughed at so readily now.
No, they're not.
So with that case, I talked with all the family members. It was like a 7-year case. I opened it 7 years ago and I returned to it. Yeah. So that's there's a lot of different layers to the processes of investigation, but those are some of them.
Yeah.
And I, another thing that I will do is, if it's just a straight ahead UFO case, I'll talk to the witness again, like a couple months after the initial conversation, and I tend to cold call people, and have them tell me their story again, and the ones that are real, they're talking from memory, and the details are pretty similar to the original ones. Once in a while you'll have somebody that tries to make their case a little bit better, or the UFO suddenly becomes large enough that aliens were coming out of it, and those get the red flag right off, So that's another thing, is just repetitive interviews and such.
I think any researcher worth a salt does the comparison thing after, like giving it, like you say, a couple of months, and then checking the story again to see, make sure.
That's how I train my field investigators. I train them to do that as well. So especially if it's kind of a crazy case, and we get sometimes usually the crazier cases are the good ones. It's they're not here to do little air shows and disappear. So when somebody has an experience, it's usually outside of the normal experiences that people have. It's not like if they'd seen the B-1 bomber or something. There's something very weird that happens when you see an alien craft. It affects people. It affects them.
It's funny because do you get a lot of reports from sort of children?
Usually children that are now grown-ups.
Right.
Yes. A lot of stuff, especially people that are return, have visits or abductions where it keeps happening. It'll usually start at an early age, like 7 years of age. I've got like a Homeland Security agent that his visit started when he was 7. The parents thought he was having night terrors, and then the parents started noticing the weird lights and things like that, and realized that something strange was going on. Sometimes people think they have a haunting, or and later on, they finally realize what's really been going on.
I saw a huge UFO when I was 7 in over the school field. Just me and my friend. The school field was full of people, full of kids playing. But this thing, as it went over, and it was low and it was loud, and as it went over, there was only me and my best friend that saw it. All the other kids were just playing, oblivious. There was just me and her stood there. But with you,
that was for you guys. That was for you.
Exactly.
It's personal. It's a personal phenomenon.
But that didn't seem to have. I mean, I've seen things since, but that didn't seem to have any effect on me. Like you say, you kind of have this if it has this effect on you. I don't remember. I remember being really excited about seeing it and talking my mum's ear off all the way home. I don't remember. And she rang the airport and she rang the TV stations and to check if anything had been reported. Nothing happened.
Never is.
No.
I hear that, I hear that same story so often, Debbie, you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one case I had recently where it was the same day that Rex Heflin took the photographs of the hat-like UFO.
Yeah.
That this little girl and all of her playmates, that there was this huge sonic boom, and all the families came outside to see what was going on. It sounded like a crash. They didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And all the parents were over talking with each other, and the kids were playing on the sidewalk. And they were hovered over by the same UFO that you see in those photographs that Rex Heflin took photos of. And it was like following the kids, and it was sending down a beam of light that had this iridescent thing to it, where it was the colors of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And they were doing this with their hands, because if they would, turn their hand a different way, then it would be different rainbow colors that they were seeing.
Yeah.
And they got to the end of the block following this thing, and then the girls stopped them, and because they weren't supposed to cross the street. They were that age. So that was the end of their experience. The UFO kept going, and it was like the Pied Piper, but that was where it ended, because they weren't allowed to cross the street. That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's a bit scary.
Yes, yeah.
Can I just jump in on that? Because the UFO that I seen, I was 7. I'd got a bike for Christmas, and the estate that I grew up on, there's only a few streets, and it's a Saturday afternoon. I remember it had been raining. I wasn't allowed out on my bike when it was raining, but I could go out after, like going through the puddles and that. And the next street down, none of my mates were coming out. Like I said, it was like around midday on a Saturday, and I'd gone to the next street, like the corner house, and for some reason I just stopped and looked straight up. And I could see a two-tone silver disc right above my head, a couple of 100 feet up. Don't ever remember hearing any noises, nothing coming from it. But also, I've been thinking about it quite a lot lately. I don't remember seeing anybody walking past. No cars went past, no people. But I could have been sat there for I just stood like that. Could have been 20 seconds, could have been 20 minutes. Because the rule was, either I have to come back in if it starts raining, come back in when I get hungry, or come back in as it starts going dark. So I have no idea.
They didn't have a UFO rule, huh? If you see a UFO, you better come in. Yeah.
But I didn't go back and tell my mum or my dad or brother or anything. I just didn't. It just seemed normal, even though I'd never seen one before. I just like looking up. I think my neck started to hurt, so I looked down. I looked back up, and it gone.
Wow!
Yeah.
And I just carried on playing out like a 7-year-old would. That was it.
That's great. I didn't,
and it was at least 20 years before I spoke about it again.
Wow! A lot of people, have that experience. I had an old girlfriend back in the 1990s who had a sighting when she was a little girl, with missing time. It was like this spindle-shaped craft, it was all silver that she saw, and she was just sitting there on the porch watching it. And the next thing she knows, it's like 2 hours later, and she's still sitting on the porch, but the 2 hours went somewhere.
Right.
And, she used to have visitations at night. Now, I thought that it was just sleep paralysis, or then I started thinking we had a haunting in her apartment, because she would have an entity come in at night.
Yeah.
And then the next day, like, things would fly off shelves and stuff,
Oh.
I watched, I gave her this painting that I did that was like it was a huge painting in a frame. It was on her wall, and this thing flew like 6 feet in the air and landed face down. And at that point, I thought that perhaps she had a haunt in her apartment.
Yeah.
And so we burnt sage and we did all that and did the salt around the doors and all that good stuff. But it didn't really, it didn't really contain it really. Right. And later on, now I know that it wasn't a haunting, that she was still being visited into her adulthood. And when she would have a visit, this is one of the, many, many people I speak with, and very respectable people, PhDs and stuff like that. They'll have a close encounter, and then there's poltergeist-like activity that happens after. It's uncanny. But I've experienced that, and I wasn't being visited. I never woke up to find anybody in the room standing next to the bed. I apparently they were there for her and not me.
Right. Oh, can I just jump in on that as well?
Sure.
Because I grew up in the same house. I was there, obviously, until I left home in my 20s, and me and my brother used to share a bedroom. And because I'm the youngest, I used to go to bed earlier. Mm-hmm. I'd be laying in bed, and I'd be convinced that there's people stuck. So my bed was up against the wall. So it was like the headboard was on one wall, and then the bed down the side of another wall, and the door into the bedroom was near my feet. But I was convinced that there's people stood round watching me, and I'd pull the covers over. I would not look out. I'd just lie there until I went to sleep.
Mm.
Even if I needed the toilet, I weren't getting out of bed. I was staying. So
you probably you're sensitive. I mean, you had your sighting when you were 7 years old.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's a random phenomena. I think that there are people that have a propensity to see them, and to have contact. So it doesn't surprise me if you felt like you're being watched. Maybe you were.
Well, that's what I think. It's like, I don't want to think that. I just move on, and but it's just like going back to it, because like me and Deb was chatting the other week, and a few people have said similar things. It's just brought it all back, and I thought, like you just said, if it felt like it was being watched, I most probably was.
Yeah.
But you could, do you know what? It's like when you know there's someone or a couple of people stood right at the side of you.
Yeah, you can feel them.
I knew they were there, but I
think we have angels and watchers, and we have. I know. I feel like I've been helped through my life at certain points.
Yeah.
So maybe the feeling of being watched is
more protection than anything. Maybe.
Yeah.
So all my weird stuff sort of happened, obviously before and after, but a lot of it was before I saw the UFO. So
I never saw one until I started investigating, and it seemed like it was a teachable moment when I did.
Yeah.
It was, and I think that, it's sort of like, well, thanks for letting me see a crappy looking UFO. It looked like a bunch of garbage bins tied together, defying gravity. Thanks a lot. That wasn't exactly the Millennium Falcon or anything. But I couldn't explain it, and the closer I got to it, it was weird. When I got like 30 feet away from it, and it was just, it changed in perspective. It foreshortened. It seemed to turn a little bit, and it foreshortened, like got more squat looking. Right. But suddenly it was a mile away, and it was like the size of a football field.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that, maybe it was, what's Doctor Who's, thing that...
TARDIS.
Yeah, TARDIS. I don't know if it was that kind of an effect or what. What I think was that it was a teachable moment for me. Yeah. It's like, you think that you have this figured out, but you don't. No. You don't,
Definitely not.
And I thought I was in control. I would have had those smoking gun pictures. It would have... No.
Doesn't happen like that though, does it?
No.
Right, we've got a request.
Sure.
Joe wants
Sure,
another
I'll play
song,
another one for you. Yeah.
which will lead us nicely into the break.
Yes.
This is a hard one to play. You want me to play before the break, or?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Okay.
going to say if you play
All
it now, then we can go straight into
Okay.
the break.
Sounds
and we'll
good.
Come
All
back
right.
and carry
I've
on.
got a lot of questions.
Sure. This is a song called "The Dancer." It's kind of hard to play, but I think I can get through it. Here we go.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Clouds ain't on perfect sky. Someone left them there. On out to dry up in the troposphere. Me, I roll between four wheels somewhere down below. A little speck of base relief on the surface of the soul. Oh, nothing simple here. I am a postcard. I've got two sides, and one is a picture, one is a blank space where you can write in the words you want to. Not quite a letter, more like a message. Oh, I wish I was that clear, but it does appear that nothing simple here. I am an actor upon your grand stage. I make my lines up as I go out. It's not amusing, no, the muse is silent. Can't get a cue card when heaven's quiet, no. It's sometimes hard to hear, but it does appear that nothing simple here. You are a dancer, you caught my eye, girl, and though we both dance, we are thinking. But if we choose to accept each other, then we may learn to dance together. Oh, I long to draw you near, though it does appear that nothing simple here. Somewhere beyond this earthly plane, angels move in unity, yeah. May we dance with them. May we dance again. Will you dance with me and my humanity? Will you dance? Will you dance? Will you dance? Will you dance? Will you dance with me? Clouds ain't on perfect sky. Someone left them there. On out to dry up in the troposphere. High up in the troposphere. Up in the troposphere. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
Loved that. Loved it. Andy's
I'll
gone.
be on the new one.
Yeah. Andy's
Sorry, I
gone.
forgot
on
to
the
turn
new
your mic
album.
back on.
Yeah, that's it.
Right, so we're going to go for a quick it will be a
That
quick,
works.
quick 4
Okay.
minute break.
Ray.
Thank
Maybe a
you
couple
so much.
minutes.
And
Skip
we'll
to the
see you
loo.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to leg it now. So see
Me
you
too.
then.
Okay.
eight, seven, six, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And we're back in the room.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Oh, that goes
for
so
that.
quick.
Got me doing my Vice, my little vape.
That
You
goes
do right.
far too quick.
We all have to have a vice.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Questions.
I'm still looking for mine. But
What, your
anyway.
vice?
Yeah.
Cider.
Hmm?
Who?
Cider. That's your vice.
Oh, there you go. Oh, I love cider. Well,
It's got to be
Ale,
fizzy though, not the
craft
flat.
ale. That's my other
Yeah.
weakness. Oh Lord,
Yeah.
So,
it was never a big deal. I mean, I'd been in Australia and I fell in love with Cooper's Ale while I was over down under,
Right.
Yeah.
and you'd have to import it.
Yeah.
And I was kind of picky about the beers I liked because American beer was just terrible for years. It's the worst. It's awful.
Yeah.
But when the craft beer industry started up, then it was like good suddenly.
Yeah. Definitely.
So yeah, that's the other one.
Good. Right.
Yeah.
Into the questions again.
Yes.
Umberman wants
We
to know
already
what
answered that one, I think.
Oh, yes, we have.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
I
we
didn't
did
take
that
it
one.
down.
That's okay.
Yes, you're just not on the ball, Andy.
No, I'm so in with the music. I
Oh.
forgot what was going on.
I'm I
See,
I loved these guys.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
I've got my yellow submarine back there with
Yeah.
my flying saucers and
I like that.
other regalia.
Do you
But,
know? I don't know if you know-
I grew up loving the Beatles. Oh, there you go.
Danger Mouse.
Danger Mouse. I like.
Did you have that in the States?
Yeah, we had Danger Mouse.
Oh, right, cool.
Yeah.
Favorite cartoon growing up.
Yeah. I'm much older than you, so I was Felix the cat. That was
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
and I even wrote I don't want to play that one because I didn't practice it, but I mean I wrote a song about that I was heartbroken when John Kennedy died.
Yeah.
Because they canceled Felix the Cat for the week. It used to come
No.
on at noon. Yeah. And they just had the news on 24/7. Well,
Yeah.
it'd go till midnight back then, and then they'd go off air, That's how old I am. And
Yeah.
so I remember just being so upset. And I finally understood at the end of the week, though. I mean, my mom again, it showed that John Kennedy Jr. and his sister standing next to the father's casket, and my mom was crying, and I was just 5 years old, and I asked her, and she said, well, their daddy is never coming home again. He passed away,
Yeah.
So then I understood.
Yeah.
But kids, they're sort of live in this state of magical realism. It might be why, maybe we're in a space where we don't question stuff that's considered ineffable or ununderstandable when we're little, and maybe that opens us up to the phenomena, because there's so many people that have their sightings, the first sighting when they're a kid, or if they're taken, it always begins when they're like 7 years old or something. And it may just be that psychologically you're in that place where you're open to it, because it's not just nuts and bolts spacecraft. There's something psychological that happens when you get close to one. It really does change you. So but answering that question, there's still the Beatles, Cat Stevens. I mean, when I was 12 or 13 years old, that's when all the singer-songwriters were coming out, Carole King, Cat Stevens, James Taylor, and that, Joni Mitchell, and she'd been doing it for a while, but it became very popular to just sit in front of the audience with a guitar and go. And Franz Schubert, the classical composer, used to play guitar back, in the I guess it was the early 1800s. And he said that it was like having a little orchestra in your hands, and that is the way that a guitar is. It's so easy to accompany yourself. Bands came along soon after, and that's a whole other thing. And once you find out how much fun it is to play with other people and improvise and all that, that becomes its own little monster. But it started with just the guitar and expressing my feelings, having an outlet, and writing songs. I don't know. I never questioned it, whether I could do it, or it just kind of happened, Yeah, the Beatles did it. Why can't I? That was the whole attitude. And maybe if I had, if I was just, oh my God, yeah, my competition is, Paul McCartney, maybe I wouldn't have ever tried. But
Yeah.
for some reason, it was like it made it okay. It's like, that's a good job. You hear that a lot. John Lennon said that when he saw Elvis Presley the first time. It's like, that's a good job.
Yeah.
I really think I would do that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd do that, but I can't sing.
No.
Oh, you just practice.
It's not. Yeah.
Just tape yourself and practice and drink lots of water, sing from your diaphragm. That's a mistake people make. They sing from their upper chest. It just, you people do that where they hit the high note and you see that they're
straining.
You want to have the breath behind your notes.
Yes.
I mean, I was very blessed to have a very good vocal coach when I was in my teenage years who would correct me, and she would have you hit the note. She would have you see it in space, and she would teach her students to have perfect pitch. It's something that you can learn by practicing. You'd be amazed. I mean, I have a friend who's a telepath, and you can exercise that. The way that she taught her kids telepathy was, she said, traffic telepathy is her thing. You have somebody cut you off on the road. The first thing you want to do is, flip them off and, say so many words. Or if you think something in your head, it's usually crash and where's the cop when you need them. All that, I'm sure it's the same thing down, over the pond for you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Some things are universal. Yeah. But if you take that moment to just send your thoughts to that person, just send the thought of, would you please speed up or move over or slow down, or and send that out there. It's uncanny. I'm like trying to get my wife to do it now. And sure enough, we were on the road and she was just ready to, she gets pretty angry behind the wheel, and it was like, wait, no, it's perfect. Let's do the telepathy, highway telepathy here. And sure enough, the guy moved over into the slow lane, and we, is just as soon as we started. But what I was told is, if you send like a negative thing, or you just tell them to F off or something in your head, they're going to pick up on that, and they're just going to become obstinate and stay, doing the same thing they were doing.
Yeah.
That's where
so like vocals or telepathy or anything.
That's where I'm going wrong at work.
Yeah, it is.
I need to get round. As of Monday, positive thoughts.
I'm trying it, I'm not. I'm a natural receiver, apparently. I as a nurse, I've had, a couple of patients that were nonverbal, and one of them was a telepath, and she could communicate, and it was amazing. It was just a little, she was like 8 years old when I started taking care of her, nonverbal, but she would get her way, and I would watch her do it. I would watch her go to the doctor, and I would watch him, stuff would come out of his mouth. Yeah. And at one point he said, I don't know why I said that. And he's like looking at her, looking at me. And he said, I don't know why I said that. That's not good advice, But she got in his head, but I was like a receiver. I could send to her to a certain amount, but we're so used to speaking,
Yeah.
And I hear that, that I mean, when people have an experience, if they meet entities from a UFO, it's always mind to mind. You never hear about them, the mouth,
Never moves.
No, it's like an afterthought. It's like the veriform appendix. It's an unused old, article of, on their faces that they don't use anymore. And so in a way, this caused us to develop songwriting, verbal poetry, the arts. I think that's very much so a human thing.
Yeah.
But we miss out because we lost out in the telepathy department. So now that's something that we need to work on, because
relearn.
We're the odd guys out as far as that goes, apparently.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Any more questions out there, you
There's
guys?
loads of questions.
Yeah, I'll do the next one if you want.
Sure.
Another one from Umbra. What's your favourite book or researcher on the phenomena?
Wow. Good question, because there's a lot of them. I love Jacques Vallée. I recently have been reading his Forbidden Science books, which are his journals, and it's just kind of fun reading those because they're his journals. It's just his life and his thoughts and emotions, and it kind of made Jacques live more for me as a person. Because I've never met Jacques. I hope I get to meet Jacques one of these days. We have friends in common and stuff.
Yeah.
But hasn't happened yet because he's kind of getting up there. But he does live in San Francisco, so he's not. He's just
Not
like 6 hours away from me.
Yeah,
if I
near
drive
6
quickly.
hours.
Yeah, I'd drive up there and have dinner with Jacques Vallée. Heck yeah. Anybody can arrange that. So I think his Passage to Magonia is probably my favorite book, just because it's such a different way of looking at the phenomenon. And I agree with him. I don't think that it's a new phenomenon. I think it's always been here, and it changes with us. He thinks of it as like a control system that was built into human evolution, and that whenever we kind of bump up against a rock or some immovable thing, that this comes out and back when people would talk about seeing fairies or and satyrs and strange creatures, but I think that they've always been here. They've just taken different tacks of communicating with us.
Question from Blue Shift. Has Earl dealt with any implants of off-world tech?
Yeah, we get in the MUFON office. It was here in Irvine, California for a long time. I know that Lou Elizondo was in the office and came there to pick up some implants at one point that we were letting to the Stars Academy research. So we do have a collection of implants that have been, usually they're just like little pill-shaped, like mini Tic Tacs, They fly Tic Tacs and they implant them too, apparently. Usually they have like little chambers inside, and they seem to not. They have some kind of anti-rejection coating about them, to where the body accepts it in. And doesn't. It's not like if you stepped on a nail or you got a splinter or something like that. It's your body sort of accepts it. We find them behind people's knees, sometimes behind their ears. There have been cases where people have had them, inserted behind their eyeballs, for God's sake.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. I had one guy who they kept putting them in his foot, and he was an older German gentleman. And he hated his entities, And I kept trying to explain to him, well, I mean, it must, how are you more spiritual? Have you been seeing, more empathy in your life? But sometimes people they feel so invaded by it. Like, Intruders, Bud Hopkins, the title of his book, and so for him, it was just this intrusion, and it kept happening over and over again. He went and he had an implant taken out of his foot, and guess what? They came back like the next week, paralyzed him again, and they inserted it in the same spot.
Wow.
And I shouldn't laugh. I mean, this guy was so pissed off about it.
I can imagine.
I don't know, what the big deal was, but I guess they're tracking devices, or maybe they're, getting biometric readings from us. I know they're interested in radiation levels on our planet. I mean, we keep on getting warnings about, nuclear, not just nuclear weapons, but just, fallout and things that, China syndrome and things like that can happen, and to be aware, So, but anyway, that's my. I don't have an implant that I know of.
Are these implants made of a material that we recognise, or are they kind of
They're
alien?
usually like some they've had them like titanium type metals, and no, they I know that they've had some that they've found that had a magnetic quality, and of course Dr. Lear, who was out here, who I even looked into working for. He passed away a few years ago, sadly, but he was a surgeon in Thousand Oaks, California, who had his office out there that was actually removing implants for people.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
And there's video footage of the thing jumping away from his scalpel, like it just came alive, or they'd embed even deeper when you try to take them out. So, and they were getting radio signals from this thing and all kinds of stuff. So it's weird.
Wow.
You know?
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very strange.
It is very strange.
Creepy weird.
Creepy weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Any other questions out there?
Oh, yes. We'll have a couple more and then you can do us another song.
Yeah, so this is from Nickname. Where do you think disclosure is coming from, or is this it? Doing it this way? And do MUFON have a disclosure agenda?
I think that everybody in this is they want the public to know, and I talk about this in public constantly. I'm finding myself doing a lot of podcasts that aren't necessarily UFO podcasts now, you know, and so there's just a lot of interest out there. For me, I think disclosure really happened back a few years ago when the New York Times had the front page article about the Tic Tac incident. And it was on the front page of the New York Times. If that isn't disclosure, I mean, right there, they said it's not us, it's not Russia, it's not China. We don't know who it is, but it's, you know, and then they brought up the extraterrestrial hypothesis there in the New York Times, the front page.
Yeah.
So if that isn't disclosure, I don't know what is. But the public just ignored the story. We're, you know, doing the same old things that we always do. More interested in our soap operas and video games than the most interesting thing in the universe, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Yeah. So I think it did happen. I mean, they're having congressional hearings on the UFO subject. It's on the news without snickering anymore. They don't play the X-Files music loud, you know, and giggle into their hands. People take it seriously now. I get phone calls from the, you know, NBC News affiliate out here and stuff where they want UFO reports. Yeah. And they're not laughing, you know, it's taken seriously. So good.
So it should be as well.
As far as it should be. You know, as far as them landing on the White House lawn, I'm told that would be a bad thing, that we don't want them to. That would mean they were like taking command.
Yeah.
And I think they want us to be in command of ourselves. They don't want to have to be the babysitters, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I think that some of the staying off in the shadows a bit is our visitors themselves. That they, right now, it's kind of the ideal situation. Those of us that know, we know. Yeah. And it's talked about seriously, and there's help out there and understanding for people if they have repeat visits and stuff like that. There's a lot of resources out now that weren't out there before.
Yeah.
And I think that we owe that to disclosure. But as far as somebody standing up behind a podium at the White House, I mean, half of America would believe them and half wouldn't, you know?
Yeah.
If Donald Trump had done disclosure, is like half the country would have said, oh, he's finally lost it. You know, the other half would have taken it seriously. And it would be the same thing now, you know, if Biden went and disclosed, half of the country would say, oh, it's him. He's finally gone completely senile, you know? Yeah, so I don't think it's going to happen that way. I think it's going to happen this way right now. This is disclosure.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Biden said anything, they'd just remove him from the White House.
They would think he'd finally gone.
Time to go. Come on, let's pack yourself.
So I don't expect that to happen. I would be kind of disturbed if they, you know, I mean, I'll say, I mean, I talk to people from the Pentagon and stuff, you know, and sometimes they're secretive and sometimes they're not so secretive about it.
Yeah.
And they seem confused. I mean,
Yeah.
this phenomena is weirder than most people know. And it's absurd by design, it seems,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I love Jacques Vallée so much, you know, because this passage to Magonia book, it just shows how absolutely strange this thing is, and that it's nothing new. It's been here, you know.
Yeah.
It's always been strange.
Exactly. Right, another
That's why I
question
love it.
from
Sure.
Rebecca. What does Earl think shadow people are? Thanks.
Interdimensionals.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some, do I believe in ghosts? Yeah. You know, it could be some of that, but it's probably interdimensionals mostly. People seem to have contact with shadow people when a portal's been opened up around them.
Right. Yeah.
I know a lot of people at Skinwalker Ranch still have shadow people that appear in their homes. I don't experience that for some reason. Guess I'm glad, you know.
Yeah. I would.
I'm sure my wife is glad.
Yeah.
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 Right. Shall we have another song then?
Sure.
Go on.
Go on, do it.
Sure.
More music.
You
Fast
can't
or slow?
You can't have too many songs in a line.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not that valiant. You are no damsel in distress. Kingdom of bed sheets rising up and down, neighbors knocking on the wall. And when the kingdom falls, you grin and play your violin. Civilization burns to the ground, and I don't want to be digging up dragons in your den, digging up dragons. My apartment looks right out on the LA River. David Hockney lives next door. It's a classical period. As for the populace, well, they may tend to disagree. The mastodons of Miracle Mile are ancient history. So let the old bones lie, and we will simply forge ahead. I don't want to live my father's life, and I don't want to be digging up dragons in your den, digging dragons. My apartment looks right out on the LA River. Billie Eilish lives next door. It's a classical period. I'm not that valiant. No. You are no damsel in distress. I don't want to live my father's life, and I don't want to be. I don't want to be. I don't want to be. I don't want to be digging up dragons in your den, digging up dragons. Digging up dragons in your den, digging up dragons. Digging up dragons in your den, digging up dragons in your den, digging up dragons, yeah. I'm playing you guys new unreleased stuff.
Yeah.
that's going to be on the new one too.
Exclusives.
We're loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's
Absolutely
awesome.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank
More
you.
questions.
I'm just sat here waiting for the next one. Sorry.
What next song?
Yeah.
You want another one? I can play another one for you. Let's see.
Go on then.
Oh, God.
All right. Let's see. I tune because I care. I need to give myself a little more room here. In the booth next door, a blonde is pressing her image into blue velour. The guy she wears forgot to shave, must be saving his razor or hiding his age. The waitress invades our private cubicle of time and space. As the cups fill with coffee, we are yet a world away. I saw it all in the midnight cafe. Julie and three friends walked their way to a table on the side. I commenced to fade, being a recluse when I'm tired. But she saw me anyway and enjoined me to her laughter for one moment, then slipped away. And it happened in the midnight cafe. In the back, a rack of dishes has expired. The manager may be amused, or maybe somebody's fired. All lost to the dully young when worlds collide. You toss all the fragments into the fire. You toss all the fragments into the fire. I'm a prisoner to the page. I write my thoughts on napkins which I crumple or carry away. Away from the refuge of this midnight cafe. From the fitful night, drawn out of the darkness into pockets of light, to saunter through these open doors for a bracelet of caffeine or just a human voice. We're all carried in on waves of camaraderie, or maybe something deeper that we crave. We're all craving something from the midnight cafe. from the microcosm of the Midnight Cafe. We're all refugees of the Midnight Cafe. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Midnight Cafe. Yeah. Midnight Cafe.
Woo! Woo, woo, woo.
I'd
I'm a
whistle,
storyteller. That's
I'm
the
not-
thing. A guitar allows you to do that, you know. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of, you know, those are my favorite songs to write.
Yeah.
I see a question, Simon. Is that a 12-string in capo? It's actually just a 6-string. This is, I kind of pick up. You know, we're a multi-guitar family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grab one and go.
So we've got a few guitars here. This is my wife's Ibanez, but it's the one that it seems to be the communal guitar. It's the one that's on the stand in the living room.
Yeah.
So that's the one I picked up. Thank you, Joe.
Excellent.
Woo, go girl. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm just
you.
going to put a
There
few
you go.
comments up just quickly before we move on.
Yeah.
So I'm just being lazy. It just saves me reading them out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Grandmaster UV.
Andy can't read.
It's my
Oh.
pleasure to get to play for you guys for a change. Usually I'm talking all UFOs all the time.
Yeah,
So
This is
I
brilliant.
like if this progresses and people have me do more music stuff, that's okay with me.
Yeah. Brilliant.
It's going to force me to finish this album. I mean, all the songs I've played for you. Yeah, the Tempé's recorded. That's on Piper Grey Apples.
Right,
If you go
yeah.
to Spotify, that's there. Somebody was asking how to find my music. You can find it on Spotify under Earl Grey.
Yeah.
Lover's Ridge is an album that I recorded that got pretty good acclaim here in the Los Angeles acoustic scene.
Yeah.
I put that out in the 90s and wound up, I was like a year later, I was, playing at the Troubadour and places like that. So,
Yeah.
but that's on Spotify. You'll see a picture of me with my hair brown on the cover and sitting on a little red Jeep, but and I released a couple albums with my duo Piper Grey. Probably going to do we've been on a 3-year respite and I got so busy with my UFO work and my buddy David, he put out a solo album, so I helped him. I recorded some stuff with him for the solo album that he put out.
Yeah.
But the album that I've been working on is I have to go out and start working on it again. I'm starting to feel, it's kind of, I mean, the muse.
Into it.
Yeah.
You have to wait for the muse. I mean, and sometimes, especially if you've got a record contract or something like that, you can't wait on the muse.
No.
You have to. But I found my UFO work was I was doing more radio and TV and stuff with that, and so but now it seems like the music's been kind of finding its place in there, and it seems to fit. It seems to work,
It's all good.
So,
Right,
plus I can hide behind my guitar again too.
Of course.
Nice. My security blanket.
Right, let's hit some more questions then.
Sure.
Umbraman wants to know, does Earl think paranormal and other high strangeness interact with each other?
Yeah, I think so. I think absolutely. I think that that with high strangeness cases, I think that our visitors, they get here using portal technology. and they'll open up a wormhole or a little window in the universe and come through that. And when they come through, other things come through sometimes. Kind of, and so it winds up being, and also, when people have contact, it seems to, afterwards people experience paranormal like effects, poltergeist type activity. And I know my friend Dr. Irina Scott, she and her sister had a close encounter with a UFO, and she actually experienced missing time back when she was young. And she got home, and her toothbrush flew across the room.
Right.
This is somebody that worked at the NSA at the time, and was a very serious person working the Battelle Institute and at Wright-Patterson and all that.
Yeah.
And she's experiencing this stuff that is usually thought of, with ghost sightings and stuff like that. But there's definitely a connection. My friend Renario Hernandez wrote a wonderful book called Beyond UFOs. Has the sequel coming out very soon, and he sees this as a spectrum that UFOs are part of. It's just like you have the visual light spectrum and the radio and infrared and ultraviolet, and they're all parts of the same thing. It's like this big rainbow, but our eyes, our senses can only pick up this particular wavelength. And it may be the same thing with the paranormal and UFOs and all that. They may be different parts of the same elephant. If you think of the old elephant parable with the blind priests, depending on what, whether they're holding the trunk or the leg or what have you, their description is different, but it's the same thing. And I think it's similar. Hitchhiker effect, Earl. Yes, there you go. The hitchhiker effect. And I think that is, that is a thing, that is a thing.
Yeah.
And some of the shadow, somebody was mentioning the shadow people, and I know a few people that have experienced that. So apparently that is a thing.
Yeah.
So far, no shadow people here, so.
Yep, I'm keeping them out of my house as well.
But I've definitely had contact, and I know some interesting people. So, I guess I won't be surprised. But so far, so good. And I think also, as far as things like that go, your attitude plays into it. If you're full of fear and everything's a threat, I think a lot of people, I hate to talk in grand sweeps like this, but a lot of times, like the military investigations into the phenomena, it seems like it plays with them. Or you look at what's happening at Skinwalker Ranch. It's messing with them. There's a trickster quality to it.
Yes.
And it seems like depending on what your attitude is towards the phenomena sometimes is the way that you'll be communicated with.
Yeah.
And if you're full of fear and you're looking for threats and you're hoping to glean, new technology that you can turn around into weaponization and things like that, it's going to be pretty dark and brooding and negative towards you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you go in there peacefully and with an, open heart and open soul, it seems to have a friendlier presence to it. That's what I've experienced. I've had contact episode some years back, and it was scary as hell. But after the initial shock, the ontological shock of that, it opened up into the Valet Davis effect. With I started experiencing synchronicities, heightened empathy, heightened telepathic incidents. It sort of opened up a panoply of gifts, and I think that everybody that they have access to those, but sometimes we're so afraid of what's happening that it's just fear-based and fight and flight reactions to it. And that can kind of change the way that it appears to us.
Yes.
It has a mirror effect to itself.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Next question is from Nickname. Have you had any MIB cases? Well,
similar to MIB cases. Now, I was mentioning my friend Irina Scott earlier, and she and her sister, when they had their UFO sighting, they had a Men in Black situation. There was this huge like lorry kind of truck that was following up and kept getting closer to their bumper, and they pulled over. And she was, Irina was running up the hill to try to get a photograph of this UFO. And the closer she got, it didn't work out that way. She finally got a photo of it when it was diminishing off in the distance, but she had missing time in the whole deal.
Yeah.
At the same time, her sister was having this conversation with this guy that just did not look right. He was kind of threatening towards them.
Yeah.
And he asked, well, what are you guys doing? And she pointed at the UFO. It was right there. And you say, that's nothing. That's nothing. And apparently he was just very, very strange. And he didn't look quite human. Well, when Irina got back to the car, they left, and this guy took off after them. It was like the movie, like the old Steven Spielberg Duel. Yeah. It was that threatening, and they felt their lives were at risk. They finally were able to get off the road, and he just kept hauling off into the distance. So that I would consider a Men in Black experience. I've had a couple of situations here that have involved like military facilities at the guardhouse, where people, like food delivery people, have dropped food off, and they're talking to a guy in camouflage, and he starts turning into an alien. I had one case like that a few years ago, and I kind of wrote it off and thought, the guy's, probably having a, incident or psychological moment.
Yeah.
But then I hear the same story, like, it was maybe 4 years later at a different base. Exact same story. There was a food order that came in. The person came to deliver. The first person, they saw this guy start changing into an alien, and he threw the food on the ground and split. The other person that was more recent, happened a few months ago, is the same thing, but she felt compelled to pretend like there was nothing wrong.
Right. Yeah.
So she's looking at the guy, and he turns into a gray alien. Then his face changes into a beautiful woman. And then her hair starts turning like slimy, starts turning into a monster. And she just kept her composure. She got the money for the food, and and she was very, very embarrassed, talking about, because it was unlike most, it's not exactly a your usual visitation or abduction kind of thing.
No.
It was so strange. It's like, I've heard this story before, Now, whether that was a military op going on, a man in black situation or something, I don't know. But it was certainly weird.
Yeah, because I was going to ask. So, if they're delivering to a military base, I'm presuming someone in the military knows that this is going on.
Oh yeah, I think it's probably MK Ultra, Mach 3. They're testing out, holographic stuff or perhaps telepathic imagery. Which, boy, that's a ball of snakes.
Yeah.
If you follow that thought, how much can I believe my eyes? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
I was reading some stuff about that only yesterday. Can't remember what it was on. People going on about the moon being a hologram.
I don't believe that. It causes tides. A hologram doesn't cause tides, you guys.
I know. But it wasn't just the moon, but that was like the main part of the story. And then they went into like other things, like planes and buildings and all that.
Well, we have technology right now that, I've heard that we have from good sources that we have invisibility technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got military guys that have been taken out on deck, like to observe a non-plane land. They heard the jets, they felt the blowback from the engines, the heat from the engines, everything, but there's no plane that was visible.
No. Wow.
So apparently there's a really good book called Cameleo. Oh God, what's the name of the author? It'll pop up. I mean, I got it on Kindle,
Yeah.
but it talks about invisibility cloaks that they actually have, and that it's possible now that for us to have a battalion of soldiers that you don't ever see with your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a scary thought, really.
I know. Yeah. Imagine how much is out there that we can't see.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean.
Well, they always say, Ben Rich, who was head of Lockheed Skunk Works, said that we're at least 40, 50 years ahead of what anything the public knows. He said we have stuff better than Star Trek, but the public will never see it because it's all in, unfunded programs, UFO unfunded, objectives.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that the black triangles a lot of people see, that there are some that I think are clearly not ours, but I've had, police officers that have been 30, 40 feet away from them where they can see ventilation and piping and stuff that looks like it was tooled in a factory. And you don't really see that. UFOs are another level up from that.
Yeah. Definitely.
So we may have our own UFOs. I'm pretty sure we do. I've had too many good witnesses, an aerospace engineer at Plant 42 out here in the high desert. He worked for Boeing, and he worked late one night. He's coming home like 3 a.m, and this thing blocked the stars out above him, perfectly silent. A black triangle with 3 little lights. I even have a visual aid. Here we go. One of these guys. Yeah. And I mean, I saw the guy's badge and everything. He was who he said he was. And he was a aerospace engineer. And his final question to me was, do you know how any way I can get in on that project? I really want to work on that thing. After seeing it, it landed like a feather. He watched the thing land, apparently behind the wall of Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. So, that's a good place to go look for a UFO, by the way.
All right, hotspot.
Yeah, it is. Just just obey the signage there. I recently went out there with a TV crew for an Italian news show, and we were obeying the signs, but they still sent a security team out to tell us to cease and desist.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're doing something there.
Another question from
I was going to say,
sure.
Sorry, Dan, I was going to say, jump that one and do the next one, because that leads on to what Earl just said.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
Where in the world do you think the most UFO activity is, if any?
California is a hot spot. I mean, we get more UFO reports here than any place else in the world per capita. I have trouble keeping up with all the reports. I mean, I think we had 80 come in last month alone. Wow. I have a team of, including myself, it's just 8 people. Yeah. And I keep them all busy,
Yeah, but you do. Especially with 80 reports.
Yeah. So all of California is a hot spot. Topanga Canyon in California is a hot spot. Hudson Valley, of course, Hudson River Valley in the American Eastern Coast area. Yeah. That's a hot spot. Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. I have multiple people that have seen black triangles there. Yeah. Seems to always be a black triangle when they see them.
Do you think that various crafts sort of choose various areas? Like you'd see a classic UFO somewhere there, and then triangles in that place, or is it kind of mixed up?
It's kind of mixed up, but we do get a lot of the V-shaped craft, that have the lights on the bottom. A lot of sightings. I mean, I had a guy in Long Beach that recently saw. He was out lifting weights in the backyard, and this thing was, and he was a lifeguard. I mean, a professional life. So he was used to being an observer and dead reckoning and stuff. And he was a very good witness. I mean, we have a lot of those out here. The black triangles, again, they seem to be seen a lot in the high desert, like in Palmdale on that side of the Mojave. People see them near military bases quite often. Yeah. So it makes me wonder if they're ours. But I mean, that there's even a patent in the U.S. Patent Office for a triangular shaped spacecraft that works electrostatically. Right. So it sounds like maybe those are ours.
Our experiments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Roswell was 70 some years ago now.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we've had that long to reverse engineer stuff. So I think that some stuff frustrates them, but it wouldn't surprise me if we've figured out anti-gravity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, we'll go back to Umbra's question then.
Yeah. Sorry.
Does
about that.
Earl think non-terrestrial beings are religious? Obviously, this will be pure speculation.
It wouldn't be pure speculation. I think more spiritual. Spiritual would be the word I would use.
Yeah.
I think religion is kind of a human thing, and it often divides us, and there's dogma involved, but it seems like entities that people have contact with, that there's a spiritual thing to it. And I mean, you would have to, if you think about it, telepathy and all those things, a lot of them, there are people that have healings around the phenomenon, a lot of things that you would associate with spirituality, or, guru or Jesus, or, but I mean, that those seem to come along with the phenomenon. And so, I think there's a spirituality that's out there. And I've been told that there's a higher power that's for people that, there's ways to deal with abductions if they're happening. Kathleen Martin came out with a book a couple of years ago, had a few members from the the experiencer resource team help with chapters, what to do if you've been abducted. And one of the ways to stop abductions, if you really, if they're becoming so bothersome that they're interfering with your life, is to call it, and just order them in the name of your higher power to stop. And that's to work. For atheists, we'll tell them, just tell them in the name of the highest power in the universe, whatever that may be, there's somebody on top of the heap, and tell them to, stop in the name of the highest authority in the so I think that it's more of a spiritual thing than religious.
I'd agree with that.
Makes sense. Right, next question, because we're starting to run out of time now. Sorry.
Okay.
Right, so this is from Joe. Do you think that maybe implants are placed when people are young so they can keep check on the people? Maybe same with animals, hence animals found attacked.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're, this is just hypothesis, but I think they're concerned about radiation levels. Oftentimes the animal mutilations are found near, the Trinity site where they did all the testing of the atomic bomb, and places like that. And I think that they're probably concerned for, the well-being of our planet. I think that Earth is an oasis. We hear that from case to case to case, that Earth is this beautiful rarity, this jewel in the universe that we've been entrusted with. And there's this kind of disgust at the way we treat it like our personal garbage pile,
which we do.
I try not to, but plastic, when plastic was introduced, people started getting sick, cancers went up, I mean, you can see the line, just rise up from, and technology is wonderful, but it's like, for God's sake, clean up after yourself. Don't leave a mess. And, the old Boy Scout credo is a good creed to just for humans to have, is leave the campsite better than you found it.
Exactly.
Right? Leave the world better than you found it. That's a good creed to live by.
And people that say, "Oh, well, there's nowhere to put my rubbish. We'll take it home. In the bin at home."
Put it in my car.
Keep the planet tidy. Right?
Yes.
Just
right. Next question. Umbra, what does Earl think are the biggest challenges for MUFON currently?
Wow. Really good questions, Umbra, man. God, well, MUFON always has challenges. It's always, it's a huge behemoth of an organization. It's been around for, 53 years now, I think. 53. Since 1969. Doing the Air Force's job since 1969. It's an old bumper sticker we had. I liked. I think the biggest challenge is just, I think for myself, is keeping as large of a tent at MUFON as possible, that there's room for everybody, for every philosophy out there. Because, I mean, people's beliefs and attitudes about this phenomena run the gamut, I mean, you think religious people fight amongst each other. We just watch a room full of UFO people. I mean, there are those that believe they're just demons, which I mean, I think we're more demonic than our visitors most of the time. But there's people that believe it's part of the paranormal, other people that think it's completely separate from the paranormal. And I think that for myself, and working as an active member and somebody that's on the symposium committee, and I helped choose a lot of the speakers that we have at this year's symposium. I'm just trying to keep as great, as wide of a tent at MUFON, and that people would be open to each other. And if you disagree with somebody, you don't have to trash them or, no, you just have to give people the ability to see this their way,
have their own opinion.
That's how it should be.
Yeah,
because if you don't, you're going to be arguing with everybody. It's true.
Yeah. Right. So the last 3 questions are from Umbra, but the next 2 are from Umbra. The last one's from me and Umbra, because he's been doing mind reading.
Well, there you go. You're working on your telepathic powers.
Yeah. Right. So next one.
See, that's good.
It's working. He just stole it before I had time to type it.
Yeah, there you go.
Where the phenomena originates from, I think it's been here with us from day one. I think it's always been here. I think that they probably had it. I mean, just my personal belief would be that I think they may have even had a hand in human evolution, and that were, somebody's science project.
I'd go with that, actually. Yeah, definitely.
I think that it probably originates from another dimension, because they seem to use portals to get here. I don't know that they're traveling light years across space to, nobody ever sees bathroom facilities or kitchen in a UFO. So they're not coming from that far away. And what I've been told is that another dimension it's right next to us. It's right here,
Yeah.
So there's no travel at all, really. Just going through a portal and bam, you're there. So I'm kind of interdimensionalist.
Yeah. I'm going to ask the last question next, because the other question is going to lead us into another song.
Yeah. So this is
where would
from
me.
This is from me, but Umbra stole it.
Yeah.
Great.
Telepathically.
Guys are on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
God, if you'd asked me last week, I would have said Paris, because my daughter was there. But now she's back in the States again. We were all kind of like, oh God, we have to go to Paris. But God, where would I go? I mean, they say that UFOs are time machines just as much as they are spaceships. And so I think I would go back to early civilization, maybe meet Socrates, see the Parthenon in its glory, go back to Egyptian times if they wouldn't, arrest me and put me in a dungeon somewhere for witchcraft. But
there is that.
That's what I would want to be a time traveler and go back and see how civilization came together and became what it became.
I like that.
Right. Cool. Right. Before Deborah asks you that question, I have to ask Deborah the question of the week. But I've got that bored of keep asking her. I've made a little video instead.
Yeah.
I'm going to play the video, and then we'll find out the answer. It's only 35 seconds long.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Here we go.
The next day. I have no idea.
There we go. So each week, I ask Deborah who's next week's guest. If sometimes she flukes it,
Yeah, I do, yeah.
not very often.
No.
So who's next week's guest, Deborah?
Next week's guest is Jodie Cook.
Hey. And who's on the week after that?
Don't ask me that because I only looked at one page in my diary.
Yeah, for those that from last week, because Lon Strickler couldn't make it, he's rescheduled. So he's back on the 1st of July.
Yeah.
Lon's a great guy.
Yeah. So he had a bit of a health issue, but that's all settled now.
Yep.
Good.
Just quickly before we move back onto you, Earl, on the 2nd of July, we're doing a midnight live stream at Kingsfork Cemetery. It's going to be starting around 11:30 and going through till 3 o'clock in the morning. So far, I think there's 4 of us that are going doing it.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed, we're going to have good weather and we're going to catch stuff on camera.
You can all have an afternoon nap and then you can be up ready to watch through the night.
Oh, no, you can't. Sorry. So we've got Lon Strickler. Then the Saturday morning, we're doing the other show, the 12 Portal.
The non-paranormal one.
The non-paranormal. And then Saturday night, we're doing a 3-hour live stream.
I can still have an afternoon nap on Saturday.
Well, I'm glad you can.
I don't even know what time that your afternoon is my morning.
Yeah.
You know? Here right now it's 2 p.m.
Yeah, 10 p.m. here.
It's 10 p.m. for you. Yeah. See, guys, round world.
Yeah. I need a
bank
bank
flat. My cats would have knocked everything off of it by now.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Last question from Umbra Man. If Earl could own any instrument, what would it be?
Oh, my. God. I think I would really love to have George Harrison's hand-painted guitar that he played in Magical Mystery Tour. You know the one? Yeah. It's a Fender Stratocaster that he hand-painted. That would be what I would want. That or I would want Eric Clapton's old the guitar that the Fool, the British guy or the Dutch artist called the Fool that did the Beatles' old Apple boutique that offended everybody in London because they had the big giant picture of a gypsy woman with a third eye and with a light coming out of it. And you have to figure, well, this was in the mid 60s, and they weren't having it. But they painted a guitar that is quite famous, a Gibson SG that Clapton had. I think Todd Rundgren owns it now. But that would be one I would, It would have to have some meaning to it.
Oh yeah, definitely. You wouldn't just want a piece of an instrument, would you? You want something with it.
Or maybe one of Jerry Garcia's old guitars, his old Wolf guitar. I'd like that.
Right, so that'll lead us into another segment before we finish.
So, all right. Earl, if you want to lead us out, and then I'll do the outro, and then we'll finish the show there.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. Thank you for having me. Thanks, you guys, for listening out there. And MUFON.com. If you see a UFO or you've had an experience, go to MUFON.com and report your UFO. Somebody like myself will investigate that for you. And there you go. If you've had a face-to-face encounter with beings, there's an experiencer questionnaire that you can fill out. And if you want to speak with somebody from the experiencer resource team, it has a little place where you can put a check mark, and somebody will get a hold of you and listen to your story.
Brilliant.
And if you need if you need a support group, there are experiencer support groups out there that are very, very good. They do them on Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you live. And if for those that feel like they need hypnotic regression, I'm like, it's a double-edged sword. Once you get the toothpaste out of the tube, you can't put it back. So I don't always recommend it, but some people just have a burning desire to, recall those memories from being on the craft, and we can help you put you in contact with somebody who's not involved with MUFON, but it's a licensed hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
So MUFON.com.
MUFON.com.
This is a song called Zion. Headlights racing down the 14 freeway. Urgent thoughts on dashes on their way to LA. I shake my head and laugh. Not part of your telegraph, no. I'm on my way away. I'm on my way to Zion. On my way to Zion. A bit of cool breeze, a touch of purifying stone. I'm on my way alone. Zion lies just next to Virgin, Utah. That's where they'll water down your beer. But that's alright by me, Jack. The water's sweeter than champagne. It's intoxicating. I'm on my way to Zion. On my way to Zion. A bit of cool breeze, a touch of purifying stone. I am on my way alone. On my way back home. On my way to Zion. On my way to Zion. On my way to Zion. A bit of cool breeze, a touch of purifying stone. I am on my way alone. On my way back home. On my way to Zion. Ooh. Ooh.